Welcome everyone to Applied AI number 2. And we are so happy that you are here. And it's clear that this is a certain kind of moment. And I'm just excited to share some field notes with you. And we have some amazing guests that want to do the same thing as well. We are being really scrappy today with our venue location. But it's also like such a beautiful symbolic location because the owner of the establishment, who I randomly started chatting up in the spring of last year, I was like, oh, like, how did you start a acai bowl shop? He was like, well, I kind of conquered the world of AI after being the founding product manager of IBM Watson and now advising AI at Fortune 100 companies, so I decided to have a side quest of having an acai bowl shop. And so we had a different venue initially for this event, but I decided to call Mahavir, who's going to present about context engineering very shortly. And I just think it works perfectly.
Can we turn off the music?
Yep. Yep. He's there over there. Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting us today and giving us this space.
Turn off the music, we can't hear.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Hey guys, thanks for coming in. So I own this place. This is my kind of a hobby that I own. But apart from that, my day job is into artificial intelligence. I've been in artificial intelligence for like 20 years. As he was mentioning, I was the founding engineer, a product guy for IBM Watson, and later went into some startups. Presently, I'm with Accenture for 2 years. They acquired my previous company, which I was building. So I head the global engineering and product for Gen AI and artificial intelligence in the agentic AI space. So that's kind of a bit of a background to me.
And we are blessed by getting a master class in context engineering with him in about 10 minutes. All right, so some housekeeping. We are recording, and I know it's a little bit blurry. Actually, it was blurrier 30 minutes ago. Now it's a lot better. Quick thing: if you can't see the screen, we actually have a feature where you can just get it on your phone. So, if anyone can't see it, and or they have a question that they want to ask, feel free to scan this and just get it on your phone. I'll leave it up for 10 seconds. And Mahavir, are we going to get a little water jug? Like a jug of water? Yep, awesome. Thank you so much. And I have some cups over here as well. Sweet. All right, so there's a lot of AI communities in the world. Why did we start another one in January? Well, I just felt like we had to hit the nail on the head about the fact that nobody has this figured out. And so that we should just be sharing notes. And the whole point of this is that we're building a community of students, AI practitioners, and business leaders racing to seize the new opportunities in this great transition to an applied AI economy. I'm pretty straightforward when people ask me about where things are going. Certain jobs are going away. This is not speculation, this is happening right now. And I think all of us have had probably a lot of us have had the odd experience of being in a robotaxi, like with a specific example of a job whose whole intention is to be, can you
in and out. Might be low battery or something.
Yeah. Hello. We'll try to make it work. Whose whole job is to babysit a car that's meant to run without them. And so it's like this weird growing pain situation where we have to admit that a lot of the jobs that people made their livelihoods on are going away. But that doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. The new playbook, if you team up with people making sense of the emerging applied AI economy, that's not emerging top-down, you might actually have a great time. So that's why we're here tonight. There's entire new genres of work that people are announcing on X, announcing on LinkedIn every day. You have AI agent consultants. On Applied AI Live #1, we had our friend Rostam, who has made hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 12 months building AI agents for different companies. A friend of mine just started his practice as a fractional AI executive after being in the business world for decades. And then we have people that have learned a new whole practice that didn't exist before, a word that didn't even exist before, context engineering. Mahavir is brought in by Accenture to Fortune 100 companies to help them think these things through. I don't think that this is naive optimism. I think that everyone has a place in this economy where they can thrive. But it's really not easy to figure that out on your own. I think we've all thought about this at different stages in our life, that it's ironically very hard to be self-aware alone, right? You learn a lot about your unique strengths, your unique superpowers, your unique blind spots by meeting people, meeting Reed, seeing that he's amazing at this one thing that I'm probably not going to be very good at anytime soon, but he also sees something in me and he can call it out and nudge me in the direction. That's the power of community. So again, maybe this is obvious, I'm not a sage on the stage. I'm just naive enough to believe that I can throw out an invite to people that also are wondering what's going on, how can we make good money, how can we live a dignified life in this new economy. So today you're going to hear from practitioners doing the actual work, making good money. Today's lineup, right after I finish this little introduction, we have our acai bowl, polymath, Mahavir Dharmchand, who was OG product guy at IBM Watson, the ChatGPT before the ChatGPT. Then we're having an agentic go-to-market masterclass from people from a dynamic duo, Reed and Jack, who have had over a dozen clients, pay them a lot of money to help them with go-to-market, and now they have a self-serve product that all of us can use. We're gonna do a little break, and then a lot of you have come for, how do we put guardrails on OpenClaw, right? We can give it access to our entire lives, but is that smart? So we have some people that are making real money, helping people set up OpenClaws and whatnot, and we wanna get their thoughts. And we'll have some open Q&A, and then networking, which obviously this is very crowded, but there's amazing bars just 30 seconds away. And I can give you some pointers as well. So with that, Mahavir, whenever you're ready, feel free to come through. Can we give him a round of applause? And I can just advance the slides for you.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to be talking pretty quick, because I'm handling the customers, all of you, while I'm talking as well. So dual job. Okay. So I'm going to be doing multiple jobs, handling the customers there and talking about the topic. So I'm pretty sure that all of you know about artificial intelligence, right? And now Gen AI and agentic AI, right? So the data that we talked about, quite essential to any artificial intelligence to work is the data. But think about data from the point of view of, if we don't understand the context of the data, does it any make sense? It doesn't make sense, right? What is context? Okay, can you move the slides?
Yeah, can you hold it closer?
Okay. So, especially in this Gen AI and agentic AI space, the context becomes extremely, extremely important. Maybe you can go up one slide. So, go up a little bit. Okay. So, the context and then the context engineering, right? How many of you heard about context engineering? Okay, cool. Quite a bit. So, context engineering is about a discipline that kind of provides a workflow and a stream and makes sense out of the data, right? AI and agentic AI systems only understands the query and the prompt only when it understands the data very clearly, right? Otherwise, it's always garbage in, garbage out.
Let's try this one.
Otherwise,
Is it not working? This one's not working either. Nice. Hello. Just gonna turn it off. Testing. Oh, let's keep using this one. Okay. Sorry.
Otherwise, what happens is if we provide just a data to the systems, it's basically garbage in and garbage out, right? So agentic AI systems and Gen AI systems.
Do you want to just speak loud?
Okay. Gen AI and agentic AI systems understand the workflow better when they understand what the data is, where it's coming from, what it's meant for, and why, right? So it's exactly the same thing as our mind works, right? If we don't understand the context of a question or a query, we may not be able to respond in a right way many a times. Think context is the same thing to the AI and agentic AI, right? So what it does, it helps the agentic AI systems or even further up to the RAG, retrieval augment generations, if you heard about, right? To disciplined way of telling it, hey, what and how the data has been selected, right? How it's structured in multidiscipline point of view, what is the source of the data, what it's doing, and why is it doing, what it meant, right? So that helps the AI agents to really make a sense out of it while it's actually making a decision during the runtime, right? So the agents makes sense and provides the output based on what they know, right? What they see, right? So here, that's exactly the point it makes is about like what they see, how much they see, what they see is what exactly the point here, the context engineering provides, right? So think context engineering as a context graph. So there is a context graph that's been built now, right? So if you heard about knowledge graph, which has been around like 3 decades now, likewise, there is a context graph that's been now created, right? So the context graph basically kind of connects to the multidiscipline data, right? Looks at multidiscipline data, and it basically kind of provides the graph, right? So for example, in manufacturing company, if we take as a use case. So in a manufacturing company, when machine is learning or doing certain work, right, the data doesn't come out of single machine. Each machine contains multiple components. It has multiple IoT devices attached to it. So each IoT is kind of giving the data out, right? To understand how the machine is working, what the problem statement that machine has, so somebody has to understand multi-point data and then make a context around it and draw a graph around it. The dependency, the relativeness of it, and then say that, hey, this is what exactly the problem could be with machine. Right? You can apply that for any industry vertical, financial, banking, whatever it might be. Like why it matters now, why the context engineering matters now more, right? So as you could see, the large language model fail without the accurate and relevant and freshness of the context, right? If there is no accurate and relative and freshness of the data, then the large language model or agentic AI systems can start hallucinating, right? That means the trust of these systems will start to fade away, right? So a lot of people say that, oh, more data means more accuracy out of the AI model. Not necessarily, right? The right data, right context of the data is what matters than more data, right? So, and also context engineering in a way helps how to control the data, where it needs to be controlled, how it needs to be controlled, right? What data needs to be shared with agentic AI systems. All that is something context engineering can provide that part of it, right? So it's basically a core principle. It is about context engineering. It's a very powerful concept, right? Context makes our output from the AI and agentic AI systems most trustworthy, right? Because the biggest factor with agentic AI systems today is the trust factor. Nobody wants to trust it. They all do a good job. When output comes out of the chat GPT we were talking about, do we trust it blindly? a lot of people doesn't do that, right? Is because we don't know what data it is actually, accessing to, where it is accessing to, and does it really make sense, right? So the context provides that trustworthy factor a lot more better to the enterprises today, right? So that's kind of a bit of background to the context engineering. If you ask me that is all of the enterprises are ready with context, unfortunately no. It's because today 99.9% of the customers are still figuring out where their data is, right? Because the data is not in one single place. It's all distributed. Where the data is, how much of data they have, what type of data have, then comes the context, right?
So that's something you're seeing advising these Fortune 100 companies, right?
Yes.
That they're not even able to get to the point of applying context engineering principles because their data is so siloed and all
Yes.
over the place, right?
Exactly.
They don't have good data hygiene, data processes,
exactly,
right?
exactly. That's a good point. But it doesn't mean, and I'm not saying that the organization should not start looking at context. They should, right? They should not wait for the data to be in structure, because the data will never be in one single place. The data will never get to a good shape. That's not going to happen even for 5 decades from now, right? So it's a discipline that every organization is trying to bring from it, from the data structuring point of view. At the same time, try to bring in like context. It's kind of the parallel. It has to work together, right? So that's about it. And now, if you go back, one slide, what I started to talk about here is these are the gaps. I don't know how many of you could see it. We will definitely share the slides with you.
Yeah, if you want to see it on your phone, again,
Yeah.
you can scan it and then click follow.
Yeah,
Again, we're recording this. We'll send this out after as well.
yeah.
But,
So the major gaps that you could see here, this is a,
I got you.
okay. This is a recent report that I pulled up. This was actually from Databricks, so where they interviewed more than 150 C-level people. And they asked them about like what's the big gap. The big gaps, which is very clearly mentioned, that real-time data processing, right? Because every organization that wants to take action is from the real-time data. So that's the big gap, that how to utilize the real-time data and how to build a context around that data, how to govern that data before actually they share it with Gen AI systems or agentic AI systems. Okay. Robust data pipelines, that's the big gap, right? The most challenging is the security, right? Security, when I say one example I'll provide, there is an organization that deployed like 30 agents, right? They're concerned about like what data these agents have access to. It's a black box, right? They have no idea what agents accessing which data, right? How to measure it, how to look at it, right? And how to control it. So that's another area which there's a lot of innovations happening. A lot of startups are coming up with various ideas of how to govern and secure the data, right? And of course, there is another areas of integration to downstream systems, ethical AI and safety around the models and agentic AI systems, efficient model hosting and training, and as well as prompting methods, right? These are some of the big gaps that are getting addressed, right? To get to a good shape where we can start trusting these models and systems, right? So go back to next slide. Okay. Now, where does the context live, right? So does the context kind of comes out somewhere? No, it doesn't come out somewhere. It lives in our data. All of the enterprises today have these systems, CRM, ERP, ITS systems, CRM, etc., right? The context lives with the data. It's a way how to figure out how to extract the context is what matters, right? And of course, the context lives in data lakes and warehouses, logs, telemetry, streaming data. All of these, combination of all of these is where the context lives. It's a method how to bring all of these data together in a centralized way or a distributed way and start extracting from that data, how to govern that data before actually they share it with Gen AI systems or agentic AI systems. Robust data pipelines, that's the big gap, right? The most challenging is the security, right? Security, when I say one example I'll provide, there is an organization that deployed like 30 agents, right? They're concerned about like what data these agents have access to. It's a black box, right? They have no idea what agents accessing which data, right? How to measure it, how to look at it, right? and how to control it. So that's another area which
You're able to see
there's
it?
a lot of innovations
Great.
happening.
Not
A
as
lot of startups are coming up with
Love it.
various ideas of how to govern and secure the data, right? And of course, there is other areas of integration to downstream systems, ethical AI and safety around the models and agentic AI systems, efficient model hosting and training, and as well as prompting methods. Right? These are some of the big gaps that are getting addressed, right? To get to a good shape where we can start trusting these models and systems. Right? So go back to the next slide.
Yep. Sorry.
Okay. Now, where does the context live? Right. So, does the
Yeah,
context kind of comes out somewhere? No, it doesn't come out somewhere. It lives in our data. All of the enterprises today have these systems: CRM, ERP, ITS systems, CRM, etc., right? The context lives with the data. It's a way how to figure out how to extract the context of what matters, right? And of course, the context lives in data lakes, in warehouses, logs, telemetry, streaming data. All of these, combination of all of these is where the context lives. It's a method how to bring all of these data together in a centralized way or a distributed way and start extracting the context from it, right? But the challenge today, as we discussed, the challenge is fragmented systems across organizations. Bigger the organization, more fragmentation happens, right? Many of the data are being restricted. They are sitting behind the firewall. They don't allow that system to be accessed, right? And then of course there is duplication of information all over the place, right? So these are like pretty common challenges, right? With the benefit of GenAI and Agentic AI, organizations are now looking how to address these things, right? But what I mean to say that this is where the context lives. To extract the context, these are some of the challenges that organization needs to address.
And these are just what you noticed through your actual consulting,
Yeah.
right?
Now then, if you say that, hey, I don't care about context, fine, great, nothing will stop. But the challenge becomes is the systems will start to hallucinate, right? If organizations are okay with that, great. I know that no organizations want to have hallucinations. And the trust factor, can that trust factor just be blindly accepted? No organization wants that, right? Security risks, right? When I'm mentioning about like when you're deploying GenAI and Agentic AI systems, can you allow these GenAI and Agentic AI systems to all of your data? If that's allowed, then great, but no organization wants to do that, right? And then we talked about the trust. So these are some of the results if the organizations don't look at building the context and context engineering and context graph in their organizations, right? So that's the reason why essential it is to build context engineering even before you think about GenAI and Agentic AI systems, right? It's not an afterthought, it has to be thought well before.
Well, structure your data well so that you know where things are. It's good for humans too.
Exactly,
Do the next one.
yeah. Right. So here I just talked about the graph, which I was talking about context graph. What is the role of the context graph in Agentic AI systems? Because we all heard about Agentic AI systems. They are the next frontier, taking us beyond large language models, right? LLMs and SLMs, right? Why graph matters, right? I was mentioning earlier, graphs is the one which kind of understands the relationship between the entities, data, right? Just not the records, right? Records are available, but what's the relationship between each of them, right? And they capture the entities, relationship, dependencies, which we were talking about earlier, right? And then they represent the workflows, and they help make the decision by the Agentic AI systems, right? And then, of course, not all of the data are structured. Probably 70% of the data is unstructured, right? That's where exactly the graphs could help, provide the structured nature and explainable context to these Agentic AI systems. Explainable, that word is very important to note, right? Even if we build a context and if they're not explainable, it's of no use. Hence, the trust and explainability is an extremely important when building a context, right?
We have a couple questions, so I'm going to show one of them.
Yeah.
What is a context graph, and what's a good example use case?
So context graph we talked about. Context graph is about building relationship entities of the data, coming from different sources. We talked about different sources, right? Example use case, let's take an example. How many are from the security industry, right? In the security industry, the fraud detection, the fraud ring that happens, right? So the fraud ring, which you can explain properly, fraud ring is it's a very sophisticated fraud ring. It doesn't happen that somebody comes and try to hack the system or try to steal the information. They do a very sophisticated way, right? They come from different sources. They fire the, attack methods in a different way. So when you have that kind of a, ring that's been formed by the hackers, right? Understanding the relationship, dependencies, and context of that, attack ring to make a decision to say that, hey, there is a real attack that's happening to a banking system. That's where exactly context graph comes and the use case that I can talk about, right? There are multiple use cases by each industries, but think in that way from the fraud detection's point of view, right? So that building that relationship, identifying the dependencies, right? And understanding the explainability, clear explainability of what is the intention of this hack.
Can you give an example for like someone wants to building a personal assistant agent? Because I think security, that example maybe it flew over my head. So do you have an example for like personal context graph? Like, is that useful for an individual?
For individual may not be that much. For example, if you're just building in a chatbot for your own purpose, right? It could be like, for example, if you're building a chatbot with some agents behind the system that you want each of the agents to do certain task. Let's say, for example, one agent you want to read the emails, one agent you want draft the email, right? You want one agent to maybe do something else, right? So in that aspect of it, you have given access to these systems, agentic systems, to different source of your data, right? So that's where exactly it has to build that relationship, understand the relationship, understand the explainability, and then provide the right information to the chatbot that you're building, saying that, hey, based on these tasks, right, go and do this.
I think that makes sense. Is an example where I have a bunch of markdown files of meeting transcripts, and in each transcript I can link to like people entities?
Yes.
Is that a context
people
graph?
entities, that's a graph that it kind of, people entities, and it draws which people, what they spoken, right? And then it will make a sense of it.
And then so if I want to ask my personal assistant questions about recent conversations I've had and who is most relevant to different topics, it's really helpful to have these your transcripts related to people that may be tagged to certain projects you're working on and interests, right?
Correct.
So it can answer these questions faster for you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. What's the next one?
We have another question. How do you build and provide reliable context to an agent when your data source might contain millions of unstructured records?
So that's where exactly the context comes into the play. The context graph comes into the play when you have such a huge amount of unstructured data, right? So there is a architecture diagram that I've shown. So I would love to kind of explain this, providing you some visualization. Maybe we can go to that straight away. Okay, look at this one diagram, right? It may be a little bit confusing. So you have this fragmented enterprise data, right? Some of them structured, some of them unstructured, right? So building a context layer for that, let's assume all of them are unstructured data, right? Now build a context in different layers, right? So number one, to decide the context, define the key data first, what the key data needed, right? Map the sources, which are the sources from which this data is coming from, ERP, CRM, IoT, whatever it might be, right? And then build a context layer, right? When I say build a context layer, right? Helping the system to make a decision, right? And create an explainability around it, right? And then apply governance before it shares the context with agentic AI systems, right? And then finally, what you do is you basically then add agents to allow the context to be shared, right? So that's how you build a context in an enterprise which has millions and millions of records of unstructured data. So what happens at the end of it, you have a reliable and governed context that can be trusted with timely and actionable, even if you have lots and lots of unstructured data, right? Maybe spread across in multiple ways.
I think what I liked is that you didn't say like a particular technology, because it sounds like this is just like good thinking of
Correct.
how to organize information,
Yeah,
right? It's good
exactly.
information theory.
The
Is that
technology
correct?
and the tools and frameworks are multiple of them. There are plenty out there, right? So like open source one, there is LangChain, Langsmith, right? I can go on, right? There are multiple systems can make this happen. So I wanted to be careful that I'm not here to talk about those tools and frameworks, but whichever the tools and frameworks that we pick, this is how the concept that needs to be built to really connect to your data and extract the context around it and build a context graph around it with the clear governance, and then you add and allow the agents to access those things.
I have a question.
Sure.
Which model, frontier model right now is effective at utilizing the context graph fully? And if I build a context graph, would it be ensure that all models use that effectively, or there might be some issues with certain model providers?
So the question here is from Adi is that which frontier models are actually utilizing the context graph
Yes.
and context data, right? And the next question following to that, if certain models, large language model or small language models, are they reliable and understand the context, right? Great question. Many of the frontier models today has an ability to understand the context, right? They're primarily built on the context graph and context understanding of it, right? Either it is Gemini or Anthropic Cloudy, right? Or OpenAI models or Mistral models, every model, right? There might be some open source model that you would find in Hugging Face. They may not have that capability, but most of the frontier models today from Anthropic, OpenAI, Mistral, Microsoft, or IBM, Granite, and whatever it might be, they all have a capability of understanding the context. They're primarily built on top of it. Right? Will there be an impact if the context engineering is given? No, actually it helps there, right? If context is not given, there will be some impacts, right? That's the impact that we started to see. If you remember last year, everybody was starting about, I don't trust these systems. These systems are untrustable, right? I'm not getting the questions. I need to ask 10 times to get my answer. The next problem was that every time I ask a question, it gives a different answer, right? You try it out. Ask a question, it will give, every single time it gives a different answer, right? That's how fundamentally the systems are built. Now to reduce that and to improve on those, that's where exactly context comes, right? And the context will be the very, very big thing when we going to get to the AGI. Again, AGI could come in like 5 years, 10 years from now, but the context is going to be the biggest impact to achieve a good AGI. Sorry.
Does building an agent require using tokens and APIs and all that? Does it?
Those are the sub-components that you require. So you build an API around it, and then the tokens, it utilizes when you actually ask a question, its token is basically it utilizes to kind of get the prompt out and then start giving you answer. Yeah, those are like pretty, basic foundation that you need to have. Because agent has to fire an API call to an MCP, if you heard about MCP, right? MCP is basically, when you think about like API gateway, right? It connects to tools and frameworks, or it has to fire an API to the model, LLM model or SLM model, right? So API is a must to have, right? And the tokens, it utilizes the token to answer in the right way.
Another small question.
Sure.
So with using context graph also, for suppose if I'm using Claude Opus 4.6, it has a 1 million token window, and as the token window gets nearing it, suppose 950,000, it starts hallucinating even when I use context graph or RAG.
Yeah.
So how do we make it?
So that's a great question. The question here is that, hey, if I'm using a Claude 4.6, right? It has a huge context, basically the context window, right? It has like a huge context window. First question is that, in the sense of, is it large context window is good or bad? In fact, actually it's bad, So in the context graph, to the point, what it does, it breaks down the context, right? Rather than giving a huge context, you break down the context in chunks. That's better to get a better output, right? And that's exactly another benefit it provides, right? By the context engineering. Now you talked about tokens, right? Every token that's given to a large language model as in a context is a cost because it goes and does the compute, right? So when you have a context engineering done properly, then you're utilizing the compute a lot more lesser because you're giving it in the batch, right? So to answer your question, yes, large context is not a good answer. Actually doing a proper context window using context engineering is a better method to get better output.
You talked a lot about how to build up effective context. I've also seen like new studies coming out that like agent MDs and Claude MDs aren't actually as effective as we originally thought. How do you keep up with like maintaining good context and not introducing bad context into your system?
That's a challenge. That's still, there is no good answer from my side for that. That's still been worked out to how to maintain the context on an ongoing basis. One of the ways that we are working is about like to retain them in memory. There is a short-term memory, there is a long-term memory, there is a persistent memory. So how do we retain these context over a period of time through some of these memory systems? These memory systems are not mature enough, right? So that's one of the ways that we're looking. Will it be the right answer? Maybe, may not be, right? But at this point of time, it is basically through memory systems.
We'll do one more question.
I had the same
Oh,
question.
okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, the reason why he's just, I think, in case anyone's wondering, why he's holding the mic is so that we can record really good audio for the recording. So thank you for the awkward
No.
holding the mic.
I know that this is a very interesting subject, right? I don't know if I'm eating up too much of time of yours.
Just any kind of final advice about maybe people starting on this journey, learning how to do this stuff, right?
So I'll talk one more topic, right, which I'm actually working on if you guys want to connect up with me. So I talked about context engineering. We talked about governance, right? The other aspect which somebody asked about hallucination, right? How do you reduce hallucinations, right? So there are different methods that I'm experimenting, one of the startup that I'm working on. So I can talk to you guys about like how that is being worked upon. So like memory systems. And then what we also do is we have a master agent. We use master agent to do the scoring, real-time scoring of each agents, right? To understand the metrics of each agent, what they're doing, how they're accessing data, what's the response they're giving. So the scoring happens in multiple way through master agent, and then each agent will score each other as well, right? Like for example, you would have been heard about LLM as a judge, right? The LLM judges each LLM responses. Likewise, now we're working on how agents can be utilized to do the judging on their own, on the responses. So that's another topic. Learning aspect of it, there are multiple ways to learn, right? So AWS, Microsoft, Google, everybody has a free resources available, right? If you are in LinkedIn, there is unlimited amount of training available free of cost, right? So I would definitely suggest go and take a look at a structured learning from Udacity. There is multiple online education systems are available, right? So deep learning is one area where Andrew Ng, if you guys heard about him, right, is one of the famous, called as like father of the AI, right? He has his own company called Deep Learning, right? So that has a very, very good deep level and foundation level learning that you guys can go and learn about it, right? And likewise, big companies like IBM and Microsoft and everybody has their own free training materials available. Some of them are like 40 hours, some of them are, a certification level training available. So you can take up those and learn about those. See, look, end of the day, in AI, the agentic AI system, learning is one aspect of it, but become more hands-on, right? If you don't become hands-on, believe me, it's more theoretical, right? I know that it's scary when I say hands-on. Believe me, even today, a marketer can go and build their own agents today. That's how simple it has become, right? So I was telling somebody that probably 2 years back, when we wanted to build our own website, say for example, if I'm doing a event and I need a website to be built, so the method it used to be that I need to go to an engineer who can build a website for me. It used to take like probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks to build a website and then accept it, right? Now you don't need that. If you have an idea of your own website and content, and the structure and the pictures and all that stuff you want, you just go to ChatGPT or a Cloudy, whatever the system, Gemini systems, you can build your own websites in probably less than 30 minutes. All you need is your thoughts, your context. Just go and put that into the system, it will build a website for you, and the website is ready in 30 minutes rather, right?
So you're saying like the Hello World version of practicing context engineering is taking the context in your brain and basically creating a really good prompt to do something as simple as a
Yeah,
static
you can
website.
go and try, like, go to Gemini, right? Go to ChatGPT, go to Cloudy, you know. You have your thoughts, put the thoughts into your mind and put that into a structured context and ask a prompt, right? See, it works. It should work, right? Maybe give it a couple of time, but it should work. That's how you actually become hands-on, right? You don't need to go and build agents. You don't need to go and build your own stuff. If you want to kind of go take one more step further, if you want to build your own custom agent, you could do that. There are places where you can go and build your own agents. Like, for example, Cloudy, Anthropic Cloudy allows you to build your own agent, right? You could do that, right? And it's very simple. Sorry.
Just one last question. How do you think companies' moats have changed? Because before, when a company built a website and spent $50,000 on this website, then me as the competition would say, well, I need 50 to just go in. But now if it's 10 seconds or 10 minutes and Cloud is going to do it, the moat changed. So how are the moats changing for companies and what's the new defensibility?
The mode's changing for companies to utilize these tools for their better, right? Now the time is one, the quality is second, right? And the cost is another one. That's the mode that it's changing, right? For companies, for individuals with these, super efficient, super intelligent systems, right? Same applies to marketing, same applies to HR, same applies to many other aspects of it, right? Administrative jobs. That's the reason, sorry to say that, that's the reason, because of these systems becoming super intelligent, super efficient, super cost effective, 30% of jobs are gone. They will never going to come back. That's the nature of the situation right now. And it will going to be more and more in the future. But I don't want to scare anyone, but unfortunately it is how it is.
Well, that's why we're here. We're not going to put our head in the sand and say that everything's going to be the same.
Yeah, it will not be. Believe me, I've been in this space for, as I said, like 18, 20 years. The way in which I'm seeing how the world is changing in the next 5 years, things will going to be a lot different.
So now is a good time to learn this stuff, even if it.
I
a lot of
would
this didn't make
recommend,
sense.
do not sit back and say that, hey, I will look into it tomorrow. Start now.
Awesome.
So what do you think about people using local models to learn off of cloud models?
Think about like global models.
Like people using like local models for training
Okay.
off of a cloud model?
Okay. So it depends on the need of the enterprise, right? So let's say, for example, healthcare industry. If we pick up healthcare industry, their data is extremely very sensitive, right? They would not probably use a global model or an open source model or publicly available model. Like what we call is open source model and closed model, right? There is two types of model, open model and closed model. What's open model? Open model is open source model that anybody can go and use it, you can customize it however you want. Closed models, basically, everything is closed. You can still utilize it, right? Like, for example, OpenAI models are all closed models, right? Anthropic models are closed model. Are they bad? No, they're not bad, right? It all depends on the enterprise and their use case, which ones they want to go with, right? If it is based on their sensitivity of the data, sensitivity of the use case, right? And also the ability to deploy these models internally, which requires compute, infrastructure, network, and all that stuff. If they have a financial capability to do it, they could do it, right? So it all depends. It all depends on the use case and the need of the organizations.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
And thank you for having us here. All right.
I think there were some questions I can answer.
Yeah, I gotta go. Like, why are you talking in the microphone? That doesn't work.
Oh, it's because this recorder, which will send a recording out, does work. Yeah. All right. Shall we welcome up our agentic go-to-market masters?
Hey everyone, my name is Reed McCrabb. I'm the co-founder, CEO at Linked.
I'm Jack Moffitt, CTO and co-founder.
Jack, you want to speak up?
Louder?
Yeah, just speak. The mic doesn't work. Speak up.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think you're on.
Cool. So a little bit about our company. So what we're doing is essentially applying AI to solve real business problems. our focus is on the go-to-market space. So essentially why we chose go-to-market is, or at least a big reason, is every single company's largest problem. Every company is trying to find more pipeline, fill their client sheet. Every person is dealing with this, and AI is really good, specifically research agents, at finding leads, monitoring for buy-in intent, etc. So essentially, kind of our philosophy, we care a lot about getting to a tangible win with our clients, just as soon as possible, and this tends to lead to success for our clients as well as for our company Linked. And then a note on forward deployed engineering. If you're a Palantir fan or follow Alex Karp, he kind of coined this term. I think it's more relevant with AI coding agents and how quickly you can build stuff. But essentially being able to view your clients more as partners and kind of in real time build towards their use cases. The quote I put up here is, the moment you separate the person writing the code from the person using the code, the product dies. You have to collapse the distance between the engineer and the mission. So that's something we really take to heart at Linked. We have now a team of 7, and we're very forward deployed in ensuring that our agents are well crafted for our client specific use cases.
Yeah, so over the past, throughout most of 2025, we were building out our own platform, which is live today. And the main focus of the platform is if you want to be able to self-serve and automate your sales team in terms of the top of funnel process. So we offer Smart Search, which you can plug in any natural language prompt, describe your company's ICP, connect up your LinkedIn connections so the agent has context of who you may already be connected with. And be able to have the agent run searches either weekly or use it as an experimentation tool to make mini lists and reach out to see who might be interested. And then on top of the Smart Search, we also have signal monitoring. So we know a lot of our clients didn't necessarily need help finding leads. They knew the 100, 200 companies they were trying to sell to. What they really needed help with was timing. So being able to give them a notification right when something happens that might trigger a sales flow for them, whether it's a new RFP being launched by a government agency that they're trying to sell to, or a SaaS company has a cybersecurity breach and they can use that as a potential opportunity to trigger a sales flow. They were really interested in that real-time monitoring that we were able to offer them. And then in 2026, we've really been focused on how do we connect our agents to everyone else's agents. So we found pretty quickly that people were interested in the search, they were interested in the signal monitoring, but then their sales process at each org that we worked with looked very different. So some companies might want to take the data and just kind of monitor it in the background and have one person reach out to leads that look interesting. Other companies might want to be building custom landing pages and tying that into their marketing team to be able to cross-reference that with other kind of campaigns that they might be running to see, once they get, if there's any trends between signals that they're finding on the public internet and interaction data that they're getting from certain contacts through something like SalesNav or another marketing platform. And this is really where the forward deployed aspect started to really grow with the Link product. And I think one of the great examples of this is a case study that we've recently done with a talent agency. So talent agency, the first thing that comes to mind actually probably isn't sales, but at the end of the day, he still has a clear sales pipeline. He's looking for job opportunities, which is a valid public signal that's going to be something we can find on the web. And he knows as soon as there's a job opportunity available, if he can have a client in his network that he can send out to them, it's a pretty easy sale for him. So what we were able to do is use our agents to set up the signal monitoring and kind of customize the certain roles that we knew he had clients already ready to fill, and just automate through to him a whole outbound campaign so that the agent went off, found relevant job postings, found the hiring manager for that company, looked up inside of his kind of pool of clients that he had on his internal database, formatted an email that said, hey, I have these 3 clients with these skill sets. If you want to set up a call to talk, I'd love to meet. set up that outbound campaign, and we started closing multiple new deals for him a month. And to Reed's point about trying to get as quickly to that point of success for us and our client as fast as possible, it's a pretty easy no-brainer for him to just continue scaling up and up as much as he can. Very low effort from his end.
Yeah, and I think just to speak, or I guess let's dive in a little bit to how we got to the solution, but just to kind of speak to the folks who are interested in kind of like this forward deployed engineer, applied engineer, however you want to kind of phrase it. The trick we've really learned is like finding out what their like alpha is or what their kind of tribal knowledge is. So for us, we're finding their go-to-market alpha, like what's already working for them. In this case, he basically identified the 12 websites that are really good at posting jobs that are matches for his designers. And then the criteria. So like in this example is the university they went to. He basically identified if I get, one of these 12 sites with this criteria and I hit them within 24 hours of the post, I typically get a candidate a meeting. So you don't need to like reinvent the wheel. You often need to just kind of dig like what's working for you, how can we apply this to AI agents and scale it. And yeah, I think I just kind of higher level say this. You want to get their tribal knowledge and find out what is already working. And then we found, again, just kind of in this applied AI kind of new partnership model, if you want to get to like a win as quick as possible, so there's often a lot of low-hanging fruit. Like if someone's doing no AI, there's tons of stuff you can do for them. So getting to that first win and then immediately, looking for the second one, because the client's going to be fired up, they're going to be excited, they have a clear ROI, their top line is growing. So you kind of want to hit them with your next idea, next thing to automate when you're kind of feeling this success.
So let me ask a real quick question. So let's unpack that. So the top line was growing. So you picked a pilot that grew is it smart to pick a pilot that grows their top line?
That's typically good. Yeah, that's typically a good result.
And then it just gets them, I get it, right? If we apply more AI in strategic ways, we can grow our business. And you've now worked with a lot of different clients, right? And I've heard that it's more effective to say that you can grow their business versus cut costs. Is there any intuition around that from your experience?
Yeah, I think typically when working with sales too, that's obviously their number one focus. With agents, there's always opportunity for automation, but there's a lot more resistance when you go down that path, whether it's from the people that you're actually going to have to work with who are scared that you might be automating them away, which oftentimes we found is not the case at all. What we're actually trying to do is make their job more focused on the actual selling part, talking to clients, trying to pitch their product, and much less about just sitting on LinkedIn and Google and researching all day and doing all this stuff that computers are going to be doing for the future at this point. And obviously when you're growing a company's top line, nobody really complains for the most part. They're all pretty happy. You're meeting, especially when you're working with sales teams, you're making them all look good in the eyes of the C-suite. Yeah, and so after we kind of did this initial pilot with the talent agency, he saw the value of the data that the agents could bring. So since then, we've set up our research agents to go basically map out the entire architecture and interior design firm network for him across the entire U.S. So now he has a platform that he gives to his candidates that is also piping in all of that job data that our agents are finding. So his candidates can go on and look for firms in their area with their preferences or their styles and look for firms that are currently hiring. And we put a nice map UI over this, and it's kind of just giving him that dopamine hit that he just loves to see. And he just kind of keeps coming to us with more and more ideas. And from our perspective, as long as we can actually, serve him and make him happy in terms of him feeling like he's growing his business and continuing to grow his revenue, he continues to come with us week over week with new ideas and new ways that he wants to try and grow the platform.
Cool. Yeah, just kind of wrap everything up here with some key takeaways. If you keep winning, the pot grows and everyone is happy. You win, the client wins. You want to build for outcomes and find tangible wins, like we've been saying. I've also found a lot of the value we provide, especially as we're starting to work with some larger companies, is a culture shift. And sometimes there are people kind of like in the C-suite who like that's really what they need is they know, they need some younger folks who are AI native and kind of need to come in and shake things up because they know this is legit. So as much as you can lean into that as well, I found is very helpful. And then get into a win when everyone's celebrating and excited, have another problem ready within their org, present that problem to them and a potential solution, and then get to another tangible win. And then, just kind of wanted to leave you on this note. Just, there's obviously some doom and gloom. Like, a lot of stuff is a little bit up in the air, but just also a really, really exciting time. This chart I have pulled up here on the bottom is domains that agents are deployed in. It essentially is showing coding agents. We're at about like 50% now, which even that is kind of low. But everything else, go-to-market, marketing, back office, like under 5%. So there's just so much opportunity. We're still very early in this game. Like there's time to figure this stuff out, get in front of the right people, and really drive a lot of success both for yourself and your clients. So thank you. Quick plug, platform and API, free month on the top. If you want to chat with me, my calendar is at the bottom.
Let's do some questions. Well, we have a question. Is Linked effective for B2C e-commerce businesses?
So we've explored this with a few different customers, and I would say largely no, but there are caveats to that. The big trick is people don't want their personal data online. Companies do want their data, their kind of job postings, all that online. So you're kind of fighting against, in terms of, you're fighting against the nature of the internet when you try and do too much B2C. That being said, there are some opportunities, obviously, it applies to, but generally we try and focus on B2B because that's where we know we can get the most wins.
Awesome. Any questions in the audience? Go ahead.
So, used your product, love the lead signals feature. Our team uses HubSpot, and this tool doesn't exist on HubSpot. It's automated maybe 20% of my team's weekly time, which is amazing.
Wow.
I'm curious now, why hasn't HubSpot or any of the other big dogs implemented a lead signals feature? And also, what's the 2026 roadmap for y'all? If big dogs do come out with something like that, what are you innovating to keep kind of a moat?
You want to repeat the question before you say?
Yes, basically, how do we not get swallowed by HubSpot, Salesforce, etc., which I think is a great question. The biggest thing, like the biggest tailwind we have is how rapidly the space is changing. So we kind of got the OpenClaw moment. We got a big update with Claude Code. Linked is able to move a lot faster than HubSpot is. We don't have the data security compliance we got to worry about with standing up some OpenClaws. So I would say like our velocity and innovation is kind of how we're planning to compete. In terms of integrations, we integrate with Salesforce. We have HubSpot on our roadmap, so maybe we should bump that for y'all. Other stuff we're working on, we want to give our agents a lot more context. So if they actually have read access to your CRMs, understand what deals are closing, why they're closing. If your CRM has call notes and you can signal monitor based on something a client said in a sales call, different stuff like that. So a lot more context engineering, and we really want to explore how to get more involved with OpenClaw and spin that out for our users.
Any final questions? That was awesome. And I just want to highlight, you just said that they helped save your team 20% of their time. Is that correct? Wow. Congratulations. That's awesome. Well, let's give them a round of applause. So I think now is a great time for just a little quick break. If you want to run to the restroom, it's over here. And we'll get started again in about 5-6 minutes with a little discussion about OpenClaw security. And it's I wish I knew that moving the speaker 1 foot this way would fix all the problems. Yeah, well, that's not very good technology.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. It's not.
It was bigger.
Yeah.
Chris.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, I've been around AITX community quite a bit. Yeah, really like all you do. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I have to run.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Did you learn anything?
Yeah, for sure. So my background is in healthcare operations, and that's just an area that is
Plenty right, right?
Yeah. So yeah, trying to set something up to do all the AI.
How big is your team, and like how empowered?
Do you want to turn on the light?
Or would you like to buy it?
I think it's fine. Yeah, I don't want to. Well, I mean,
I just in case the thought didn't cross your mind.
Are you empowered already? Are you being empowered? Like
my team is me by myself. Yeah, so that's my job doing all the operations for prior authorization. You know what prior authorization is. You have to get approval before you get some sort of procedure done. Yeah, so that's essentially what it is. You just have to get a doctor's assigned by the insurance company.
okay, that's awesome opportunity to streamline.
Yeah,
Right?
so there was so much red tape, and I just really got tired of it last year, and then completed a data analytics program, and now I'm trying to really take off.
Awesome. Did that feel useful?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
I think with the speech earlier, like having the actual context, and I think a lot of people, especially at my old company, the data was everywhere. They didn't even have anything in terms of like an HR database with all their employees, and so they wanted to like integrate that into like a performance tracking thing. It was like y'all have so far back. It was pretty insightful, but yeah, I learn a lot every time I come here.
Right. That means a lot. I would really encourage you to go connect with Mahavir.
Okay.
Yeah. And just like connect on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. It actually ended up working. But I'm gonna. Now we have this, right? Yeah. No, thank you so much. Hey, what's up? Nice to meet you. Wow. Finally meet you.
Yeah, man, it's happening.
Awesome. What's up? Good to see you.
Told you I'd make it. This is nice. It's a good venue too. It's not better choices at a bar. But,
For sure.
A little healthy food.
For sure. Yeah. It's very 2026.
Yes, yeah.
Getting away from the drunkard. Ironically, I'm telling people to go to the bar after.
We're gonna
balance it out.
Kale salads.
Just cancel it out. Cancel it out. How have you
It's
been?
good. I've been well. Just still trying to like pick up some contracts and all that kind of stuff, but otherwise starting the year well.
We're all trying to figure it out. To put it simply, I'm like, there has to be. I've done like different kinds of gigs that have felt different levels of good and worth it, and so I'm like
in the last year.
Yeah, in the last like few months. And so I'm like trying to figure out the role that like really leverage my personal skills and network, but also don't lose out on my AI experience as well, right? Yeah. And everyone basically should do the highest return on investment based on who they are, right? That's obvious.
Value, highest value task. Oh, that's good. Well, you've got a new share in the community building. So that takes, I mean, as you know, that takes a while to gain momentum. But yeah, that's excellent. And I think it's Travis, right?
I don't think he's here.
Oh, he's not?
Pardon me, Bart, 1 second. Programming wise, do you have anything else, or should we start setting this up and using this, or just working?
We don't need it.
Okay. And you have more
we have one more. We have a panel. I need a few chairs here. Can you get 3 chairs? Probably
This is the only spot that works, right?
Well, it basically has to be like in front. Hello. Test. Testing. Did I fucking know? Hello. Where's the homie that there's supposed to be a panelist? Stefan. Oh, over there. The guy with the Ray-Bans over there. Can you tell him to come over? Hey, Reed. So, do both of you guys, or just one of you, want to be part of the OpenClaw security conversation?
I want to get in for sure.
Okay. You want it just alone or both?
I think just Jack's good. I'll hang out, maybe throw you a couple questions.
Okay, cool. All right, Jack, you want to come sit down?
I'm cooking up all the link work first.
Okay. All right. We're about to get started in 2 minutes, so please find your seats if you're interested in the OpenClaw conversation. What? Why don't you scoot? Yeah. Why don't you scoot over? It doesn't matter. I mean, they can easily scan this. It's fine. That's all it is. So, if you want a refresher on the questions. So you've been spinning up a swarm of...
Yeah, so I've been doing it all on GCP and making them like Google Workspace accounts. So they all have like a
isolated
linked email that's fully like their permissions are provisioned for Google Apps.
So why don't we do, you guys introduce yourselves and your interest in this kind of stuff in general.
Yeah.
Cool. And then just your initial, and then should we just go down the list and then just riff on it? And I'll just let you guys pass? Okay. Should I say Stefanos or Stefan? Stefanos? Nicklo?
It's already too many syllables.
All right, y'all, we're gonna get started. So start clapping. I'm so glad you guys are meeting new friends. And as a reminder, in like 30-ish minutes, 30 seconds away, really dope bar around the corner. All right, y'all, we have two OpenClaw experts here. You're like, not really, but no one's an expert. I'm gonna have them introduce themselves and what they're doing with OpenClaw, and then we're just gonna go down the list of good questions that you're gonna wanna think about when you're setting up your OpenClaw, ZeroClaw, whatever version you want.
Yeah, so hi again, Jack. So at Linked, we've been working and kind of looking ahead at where we think OpenClaws are going to be 6, 12, 18 months into the future. Today, obviously, they're not kind of fully autonomous employees, but there's going to be a point when they are. So really our kind of main interest and focus on them today is how do we build these from the ground up like you would treat an employee. So you hire someone new, you onboard them, you give them an account. They don't have access to everything in the org. You're kind of controlling them. There's IT in charge, there's InfoSec in charge, and there are rules around all that. So we're trying to build our kind of network of OpenClaws from the ground up, kind of keeping those principles in mind today so we have a safe way to experiment with them. So as they get more and more capable, we won't have as much friction with getting them deployed and kind of bring them online and kind of helping us automate some tasks.
Howdy, Stefanos. Can everyone hear me in the back? Fuck yeah. All right. CEO of Gamerplug, as well as Good Life Consulting Group, and expert of OpenCloud.
Do you want to just explain what those are real quick?
Sure. All right, so Good Life Consulting Group, we help people. We've been helping people with AI for the better part of 2 years, as well as other consulting projects. And Gamerplug is going to be the largest gaming community in the history of the world. But before that, I was at Meta and Ernst & Young in privacy and security space, as well as a startup around here that had the most student data called Unison. So privacy and security has been something super passionate about. Know it's really necessary. And when I was talking to Gary about this community and the things that we're building, the guy who checked you in, Eon, bouncy Greek gentleman right there, very sexy accent, we were implementing this, and he is talking on his phone. By we, I mean mostly him. And he's talking to his phone to Telegram on a weekend at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Some of our engineers who are overseas have been working on stuff, said it's ready to deploy, and he literally picks up his phone as we're messing with OpenCloud. This is week 1 of it coming out. And he tells it to change 3 things on our Git repo and then deploy it. And we sit there, and we're at the kitchen table, and we're just chilling. And it worked. And he's like, do you know what this means? And I was like, yeah, this is a big deal. And it continues to be for the past 31 days. And it doesn't feel like a news cycle that's going to get washed and rinsed like everything else has in the not too distant future. It's the story. And again, Eon and I spend about 2 hours arguing every single day about the best way to deploy this, whether local makes sense, what the models are, what are we going to buy to deploy this on, what is safety. So that's the other thing about, these are just real conversations that we're having continuously, because it is pretty terrifying if you give it access to the wrong thing that screws something up, especially if you're building something for a client. So that's where all these questions came from, and I'll pass it back to you, and you can kick it off.
All right, so now that you guys have such an intuitive feel from the veteran status of playing with it for 31 days, how do you set up guardrails for an open agentic system with access to your entire machine? So you started to answer that, Jack, with the provisioning. So wanted to share a little bit your thought process around that.
Yeah, so I have not run an OpenCloud locally yet for that exact reason. I guess guardrail number 1 is don't run it on something that has sensitive information. So we've only run OpenCloud on VM so far, all fresh in the cloud. We actually are using GCP, which is probably more expensive than some of the other options out there. The decision point there was that it can tie in with the rest of our Google Workspace, and we can manage all the permissions and access controls from one place. So each agent has their own linked email, their own identity. It's running on a clean virtual machine. I have all the deployment and configurations in something called Terraform, which is infrastructure as code. So it's explicitly declared. It's all very auditable, and it gives me 100% control. I always can see what's going on from my machine, and everything is kind of in this safe, isolated bubble in the cloud. So I guess to answer your local machine, my advice would be don't do it. Yeah.
Deploy on a local machine, but wipe it and start fresh. So that's what we're doing. So you're totally right. I would never do it on my computer. Eon has done it on his computer, nice. That's not the good idea. That's not how you're going to really find yourself success again, unless you want to really try and make sure there's no sensitive data on it. That's the big thing. And what we are doing is, again, wiping machines, because that's going to help us save, we think that's going to help us save money in the long run. You go back to people were on-prem, off-prem, on-prem, now we're on the next cycle of off-prem, running everything in the cloud. And so our current thesis is people are going to be excited about doing things on-prem again, due to the fact that you can really hyper-control that, and you can control costs now. So if you have a machine that's powerful enough to fork Kimi K2, and you've got a really great local model, that is going to be something that you can then put the data on. The first speaker that was up here was talking about the context and context windows and how important those are. Well, if your entire machine is a context window, it's going to be a way where you can actually pull data, have all the important information, and do things like connect the only APIs that you want to this open cloud instance. For example, we have it connected to our Notion board and to its own instance of Notes, and we invite it to its own Gmail, and we invite it to meetings. Gemini takes notes. Every time it sees an email, we'd run it every 4 hours because it's a very compute-intensive process, that it will check all the notes from the meetings the past 4 hours, anything that is in our Notion table connected, just looking at the email. This was a prompt. We did not code this. Anything that's connected to any of those emails, it updates their Notion board for our CRM. So it's just automated practices that, again, these are all, I don't think we wrote after we set it up any code. Is that correct? Great, yeah, more or less. So we didn't really write much to get it going. You want to go questions?
Yeah.
Or waiting?
Yeah, sure. I mean, both of you guys' opinions, everyone has an opinion on this thing, right? But are your opinions different for personal use cases versus commercial use cases of OpenCloud?
When you say commercial versus personal, like, what's an example?
Are you using it for personal reasons, or are you using it for like professional reasons, or deploying it for business purposes or things like that?
Thank you.
I would say.
Oh, go for it.
I would say from my perspective, I'm like 100% VM. I've had my Mac for, I think I got it in 2022, and I was still in college at the time. So like, who knows what's sitting somewhere in my file system? I'm sure my social's on there somewhere in an unencrypted file. Like, I don't want to deal with that. So I'd rather just play it safe. Maybe I'm a little bit risk averse in that sense, but even for personal use cases, like I'm not going to run it on a local machine, especially something that has all my personal stuff. Mac Mini, you want to go buy a new Mac Mini, don't connect it up to your iCloud or anything, maybe then, but yeah, just very much.
But isn't that why people buy, like half of why people buy to connect to their iCloud messages?
Yeah. So like that's just, we're in a world where, like, especially with iCloud or OneDrive, whatever Microsoft is, they're trying to make your data like available at your fingertips on your personal machines, which kind of directly contradicts what you should be doing when it comes to like this autonomous system that can search behind your back and do stuff on your behalf.
Ours is business. If I did want somebody to know everything about me to be a personal assistant, I would still start fresh on a personal machine, and I would be even more inclined to do a personal machine. All right, OpenClaw's new. I fucked our OpenClaw like real fast, and it was just ripping through credits. And so that's the other reason that we like to have, that we want to start experimenting more on personal machines that are powerful enough to run legit models, is all it takes is one prompt, and it has cron jobs, which is automating jobs that happen over and over again, and then you've got a heartbeat, which is something that's going to is another file in there where it is actually executing the tasks, and one of our cron jobs got stuck in a heartbeat. So it's just, things like that can happen where you're just going to burn credits, and that's where, again, the thesis of having the machine. But again, a VM is awesome, especially if people are willing to pay for it and continue to move things forward. You have other questions coming in?
Well, we have a question about why not just do a Docker container on your machine.
There are ways to break out of that, especially if you open up ports to be able to access access from your local host to talk into the Claw. Actually, when I was setting it up on GCP, Claude flagged the way that I was trying to do the Docker container environment for my development environment to where it would clone the repos and actually do work and say, just so you know, there's a breakout vulnerability with this, where the Claude can actually break out of the Docker container. So Docker's cool. It's awesome for like the environment portion, but from a cybersecurity perspective, there's still vulnerabilities for sure.
So, dumb question. Do you think that some of these AIs want to break out?
Not today. I don't think.
1.7.
Yeah, but like if you're going to set up a system, it's kind of one of those things where the choices you make today, you might think, oh yeah, like I'll address that later. But you know, we all procrastinate, we all forget about stuff, and why take the risk? Especially if you're doing something professionally with data when you're legally bound to keep things secure.
No notes.
So we have a question for you about what's your approach to training local models? Or have you been doing that at all? Or just using open models locally?
Yeah, for using models locally, honestly, we've just been forking ones and testing which ones are running the best. We're testing a lot. So we're using models on. We're using a bunch of different models. Ones that switch models we're using all the time. Open Router, and so I want to see what it can do the best with the weakest model and how things will still continue to operate. And we obviously know this deployed locally. For Gemini Flash 2, we've had a ton of luck. That's super fast. It's been really snappy. I murdered it trying to figure out what exactly happened, if that was on me or if because we got so big and the memory file is so large, it won't run anymore. So it's just a ton of experimentation on what's working. And then again, so the memory files are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Every day there's a new file every day. So is that context window, just like the person who was speaking here at the beginning, is that context window now too big to run that model? And there is a hypothesis out there that if you're using a model that's too weak, it's actually going to be more expensive than if you used Gemini Pro 3 Plus, and because it's going to use more tokens. So experimentation still. Anything else?
No.
Benchmarks when you're testing as like a starting point for like certain tasks, or like how are you going into your testing?
How are we going into our testing? Are we looking at benchmarks? Yeah, we're mostly looking at benchmarks, which models. There's so many out there, and Amazon has one that is unlimited for $19 a month, which we are talking about testing because that'd be really interesting for some clients. I can't recall what it is. I literally just found it today. So we're looking at costs and benchmarks because we do just want to test things internally. Again, we're throwing everything at it, and whatever it can do, we're interested in seeing how well it's responding.
We've done some eval stuff, not necessarily on the OpenClaw itself, but as a part of the kind of environment we're trying to build for it, we're putting up a lot of internal microservices. And like one of them is a call notes transcript scrubber. So that would be like if Reed and I are on a call, we're discussing, for 90% of the call, we're discussing projects and stuff that we want the agents to have access to, relevant action items, deadlines, stuff like that. But then 10% we're discussing an upcoming employee contract. We don't want that being pushed into a knowledge base that then other agents or our employee's agent could then pull down directly. So this was, I guess, a good thing in terms of governance and guardrails. Like a good problem that Reed brought up as soon as I put together this project manager agent. He's like, "Yo, can like all the devs just like look into our conversations now?" And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, they can." So we put together like a transcript scrubbing pipeline, and we've built an eval for that. And so it's maybe thinking about some of these security risks and actually separating that from the agent. Just giving that to the agent as a tool. So now it's a standalone prompt in a separate microservice. The agent has no ability to touch it, access it, modify it. We can eval it separately, make sure it's meeting all the requirements we need, and then the agents now have full context to all the projects that they actually, like the project context that they actually need.
I kind of love the way that you are assuming like this adversarial sort of nature of the agents. I think that's actually smart long-term thinking.
So there's actually a book that a professor recommended to me in college. It's probably 2021 or 2022. I think it's called Think Like a Hacker. I don't know if anyone's read it. at the time pre-ChatGPT, so I wasn't even thinking about it in this sense. But the general takeaway of the book is it's kind of like Murphy's Law for building systems. Any vulnerability that you do leave, consider that it will be exploited. And so I think that's obviously been the case, for the past 50 years, as long as we've had cybersecurity, but I think is only going to become more and more true as we have all these agents kind of doing stuff in the cloud with no one watching them 100% of the time.
See some people typing questions.
I had one in there, but I don't know if it actually registered.
Is the Ironclaw one?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so have any of you used an alternative to OpenClaw? Why or why not? Tell me about your experience.
I haven't yet, but I was actually talking to one of our buddies today. He's experimenting with one that's implemented in Rust. He loves Rust, so I'm not surprised that he's...
Zero Claw?
I think it might be Zero Claw, yeah. Yeah, he's very excited about it. He's trying to push me down that path. I'm still, I guess, yeah. I haven't gone down there yet, but I'm definitely excited to play around with them.
No, with that said, there's a lot of activities that are being done in OpenClaw that people have been using agentic workflows. And so there is, if you are really worried about cybersecurity and worried about testing systems and connecting anything, that's still a relevant answer to a lot of different questions. You can hook them up. It's manual. Their AI can code most of it for you, and then you can just kind of fix it. So there's that option, but I've not used any agents like OpenClaw except OpenClaw.
So we have Patrick here that has a bias, a favor toward PicoClaw. Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, PicoClaw is written in Go, and so it's very, very performant version. One of the downsides to using IronClaw, PicoClaw, NanoClaw, ZeroClaw, anything like that, is it's not being consistently updated by the active PRs that are happening on OpenClaw, which obviously has like a significantly higher rate of contributions. But what you can do is you can write a skill that allows it to analyze all of the PRs that are being accepted and then have it rewrite in that performant language and then update itself that way. So that's like what I do with PicoClaw, and so it's just becoming significantly more performant. It also says, it also validate whether that PR may actually be a breaking change, and have me approve whether that should actually be a contribution or not inside of our local OpenClaw version or PicoClaw version. So that's how I would kind of approach that. You always want to consider, like, there's a great alternative versions, but you also want to make sure that you're up to date with like the latest changes of OpenClaw itself. So make sure you're balancing that.
It's kind of interesting that Go and Rust are rising in popularity. I think for a lot of people that were afraid to learn the new syntax, now that's no longer an excuse. Do you want to riff on that a little bit?
Yeah, I really love Go for agentic coding itself because agents do such a great job in Go. Rust is a little bit more dangerous. I have a Rust background, simply because there's so much memory management that happens there. So Rust can either be your greatest friend or your worst enemy. And when it comes to agentic coding, I definitely want to be very careful about how I manage Rust. So I specifically picked PicoClaw because of Go, because of the AI's capability to manage it extremely well. Now, if I had to write it line by myself, I would definitely have chosen ZeroClaw. But I wanted to be able to have so much self-management and reliability in that self-management that I didn't want to create pitfalls in itself by having it written in Rust. So you definitely want to be very careful about how you choose languages and things like that, and how it self-manages itself.
Amazing. Anyone have any final? Wait, I can check. We have a few more questions. Okay. How do we ensure different agents communicate and pick context from each other and manage memory? I think you were kind of touching on like separating like like firewalling agents. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so kind of the system that we've been building out in the same way that like if you have different devs and you have a bunch of different projects, everyone probably only has access to like the linear board for the projects they're working on or the Confluence pages for the projects they're working on. We've been doing that with the agents as well. So we've been kind of thinking about every agent as, if it's something that needs to write and be actively working on a project, then its read permissions need to be really tightly scoped to just that project, because we don't want it to have the ability to pull from other places, particularly with us dealing with a lot of clients where we're under NDA. We can't have context from client A leaking into the project from client B. And then on the flip side of that, if we are going to have an agent that's more of like a personal assistant, like I have a personal assistant for myself, it has access to be able to see my Slack messages, my email. That agent has no write permission anywhere. So it can bring stuff in, but it can't actually do anything with that. So we've been kind of trying to separate them into those two buckets. Is this like an action agent where it needs to be able to take actions? And if so, we need to really, really limit the amount of context it has. And then if it's a read agent, it's kind of doing more of the orchestration, assisting us. It's kind of passing that info to a human, but needs a human to go and take those actions for it.
Same.
We have a bunch of other questions, so let's roll through them.
Yeah.
How do I trust my agents?
You can't.
I know your answer.
Governance, risk, and controls is a tale as old as time. And we're figuring out what GRC is in an agentic setting. Governance, risk, and controls. We're figuring out how that's working in an agentic setting. So today, would I give it 100% of the trust? Like it doesn't have access to customer emails, for example. So no, I wouldn't give it access to. Assume the hacker mentality. Assume that anything that you're going to give it access to is going to leak, and would that create egg on your face today? Because I also don't trust it, even though it has access to the certain things. I would never give it access to that one thing where if a client found out that everything came out, how would they feel? So just don't give it access to egg on your face materials today.
Agreed.
And Patrick, you may have an answer to this too. I'm glad you're sitting here. Any thoughts on front end for OpenClaw? So, or any of the claws? So, there's like that very like bulky default OpenClaw front end, the gateway thing. Any thoughts about building custom front ends for clients, yourself?
Yeah. So you obviously want to really, really consider the skill set of a front end engineer. Really think about like what that requires in itself. And then you need to make sure that it's so performant, it has and understands the tools that are typically at the disposal of a front end engineer. So is your typical front end engineer going to be something that starts in maybe like Figma and then creates designs, goes through approvals, and then turns that into a product? Then make sure you design its skill set and capabilities completely based on the skill sets in which you want it to be a front-end engineer. Stop thinking about so much of like, I want this front end to look this way, and start thinking about, I want my front-end engineer to execute this task in this way. If you start thinking of it that way, you'll get much more performant results rather than trying to think of so much of product. Think about the engineer themselves. So if you want them to go through Figma, if you want them to use things like Playwright, if you want them to use browser use, things like that, then give it the tools to do that first, design that very well, and then allow it to execute. A lot of people start thinking product and go reverse engineer. Start with the engineering and work to product.
Love that. How do site TOS not get violated? I don't know if you'd admit it on camera, but theoretically, if you wanted to scrape something that had terms of service that might get in the way, how do you think about that?
You might want to turn off the recording.
No, I got a good answer. So for OpenClause, I would not give it your LinkedIn account and go connect for you or message people. Do not do that. They will ban you. They'll suspend you, and then if you do it again, they'll ban you.
Will they know?
They can figure it out.
Wait, what do you think about Phantom Buster?
What's that like? Is that like Hey Reach?
It's just like an automated.
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe you've picked up on my general attitude with this type of stuff, but it's just not worth the risk. At least for me today, your LinkedIn is like your business identity, and if you get that banned, it's tough. So it's a different story if you're just going off there and pulling stuff like the publicly available. They don't care really as much about that. They do care if you're going to log in, give an agent access, and try and like use their platform programmatically, like leverage their value prop, but 100% automate it. That's where they get angry. So like I would, for like LinkedIn connections too, I don't know, usually that's something that you're going to want to try and get a conversation out of and start a message with someone. Like either you're going to have the entire system running as an agent and you're just going to become a bot on LinkedIn, or like you're going to be so overwhelmed with messages that you're never going to be able to talk to the people. You're not going to know why you connected with them, what the thread was. So like leave agents for mass outbound and stuff like that. Like LinkedIn is for people, I think.
Places like social media, you can build, don't, the TOS is important, and so don't go against their terms. And then you create apps through sites that allow APIs, and as long as you're transparent, some things they'll, like for Meta, I wanted to see how much access they would give, and they gave it some access, for like pulling data, but they wouldn't let it message people. And I requested all of it and was transparent in my documentation setting the app in because didn't know what they were going to say. So there's to the Instagram account's data. So like pulling
Your Instagram.
So whoever's Instagram accounts you have access to that you are signed into. So yeah, not like Instagram in general. Correct. It can't go to yours unless you allowed me to sign in on a higher Meta account. So yeah, just see what they will
Was that an
use.
explicit, I am building an agent, like in the documentation?
Yeah. Yep.
How'd you request that? Like what channel did you get? I got banned from doing that on Instagram. I was trying to
Developer, so how did you do that? Go to developer accounts and then like my apps and then requested to build a new app and then there's an approval process. So it took like 2 weeks. Coming at you.
All right. I want to like remix this question from Natalia. I just want to just ask y'all like how would you advise? I think new teams have a really interesting opportunity just to kind of call back to Mahavir's advice about how hard it is for existing big corporations to like retroactively get their context engineering correct. Probably going to ask you for some thoughts on this. How would you, if you're starting a new organization, how would you think about GRC?
Yeah, governance, risks, and controls.
Yes, like how do you not overdo it as well? Like what is the way of, just go.
Yeah, so I guess from our perspective, it was mostly client driven. Like since we do kind of a lot of close work with clients, it was pretty easy for me to know like the main blocker is that I can't just, it's not like we have a SaaS company where it's one platform, everyone's all on the same page. Like we have guys working on different projects. That's already like the model we have. So like I can talk to one engineer, he knows all about one project, go to another guy, he knows nothing about that, but he's an expert on some other clients we're working with. So right from the start, that model was kind of already set up with like the small team that we do have. So it was a pretty obvious choice to just like replicate that with agents. So it's like typically for small teams, it's pretty easy to sit from the top and look down. It's like, what do we do today? Maybe is there any area to improve on? But whatever you're doing today with your small team is probably what you also want to be doing with your agents in terms of how you permission and access data.
Starting at the highest level, again, assuming that your agent's going to get out and the data would get out, so there's going to be egg on your face data, make sure none of that is being connected today. I just don't trust it, even if it's gated. And so in governance risk controls, it's least privilege, least access. So that's the idea here as well. You wouldn't want to give an intern access to all of your financial data. So probably don't do that with, if there's no reason for your system to be touching financial data, it probably doesn't need access to your financial data. So it's going to be the same model. The other thing that is, when thinking about cybersecurity, is logs. With just a simple prompt, you can have continuous logs being monitored and saved every single day. So you can actually go back and do any forensic work that's needed. So I would say it's really low risk. Again, it's a prompt, it's not coding, it's less than a paragraph. Make sure that logs are getting created on your.
Patrick.
Every single major decision when it comes to giving access to something or to anything, whether it's OpenClaw or anything like that, everything needs a risk assessment. Really think about very carefully, like the risk. Come up with all of the ideas and features and things you want your OpenClaw to effectively do, and do a risk assessment on every single one of them. If you can't plug the holes of that risk assessment, then you probably shouldn't do it. But if you can come up with a risk assessment and then come up with very clean guardrails as to why it won't create vulnerabilities, then go ahead and execute on that. But you've obviously reverse engineered all the possibilities and then made it as safe as possible. So every single major decision when it comes to giving access to any type of form of data receives a risk assessment.
It's interesting that we're talking about this topic that was relevant even way before an LLM existed, right? And this is kind of just how I see this moment. Like, this is a great excuse to just do it the right way now, and because humans can go off the rails, and then AI agents obviously can go off the rails. Let's see. Maybe let's do one more question. Okay. I think I know I don't actually know what your answer would be for this. Credit cards and OpenClaw. What do you think?
There are probably ways to do it. Like, I don't know, we use Ramp, so like you can build charge cards and put a budget on it. So I'd say, to your point about risk assessment, like, look at it, take some time to do a deep dive into it, and I guess my base assumption would be, if you give a charge card to an agent through like something like Ramp, and you give it to them the same way you give it to an employee, as long as you don't also give them admin access to Ramp, they're going to run out of budget when they run out of budget. So I would say there's probably safe ways to do it, but like, especially with financial stuff, like, be careful and do the risk assessment and ask, is this worth any potential risks that might be coming from this, or could I just have the agent send me like a cart link, and all I have to do is click add to checkout and then check out with link, and it takes me 2 seconds. So like, is it worth saving myself that 30 seconds to give the agent the card for the cost that might come with it? So.
You're good. Just as an FYI, so Ramp and Revolut and a myriad of other services, you can just create a credit card that has $100 on it, for example, and when it runs out, it's essentially a debit card, but it touches your credit card, so you can touches your credit system. So totally. And also, human in the loop is so awesome. I would always if I would get it to the point, and I also don't trust it, so I would either have a credit card that has a limit, and if I want to test stuff, great, but then human in the loop and just check out with one click at the end.
We'll do one more. If you're using Google Cloud to host your OpenClaws, why not just use some of these cloud agents like Manus, Tasklet, Twin, Gemini, Perplexity Computer, etc.? For those of you that don't know, like, basically right after OpenClaw popped off, every AI company released their clone. under their own branding. Have you tried any of these? Like, what are the limitations, etc.? Yeah.
So I haven't. Actually, Ion probably knows why. We were talking about this at a hackathon a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I'd much prefer to, especially today in 2026, with how easy it is to write code. I'd much rather start with an open source framework and then build up all the custom functionality I need from there. Like, you know, if I lock into using Manus and then Gemini comes out with a release 2 weeks later, and now that's a better platform, but then Perplexity comes out with another solution, now that's a better platform. Constantly have to bounce around between all these systems. There's also the whole aspect of, you know, I can't see really what the code is. I can't see it for sure. Whereas OpenClaw is open source, I can do my own security reviews. Claude actually just released a security review, like /command, I think, and it's, from what I've seen, pretty good. So in today's day and age, when writing software is becoming so easy and auditing software is becoming so easy, I just don't really see all that much benefit to using a closed source alternative for something like this, especially when like security and control is really like the top priority.
Patrick, I see you as well. I was using some of the VMs that spun up prior to OpenCloud, and they're fun, and there's use cases for them, but they weren't the same. And I whatever anyone's come out with in the last week or two, I haven't touched those to see how good they are. But the other thing is, like I was saying, one of the big theses that we believe is things are going to be coming inside people's businesses, not to the cloud. So this is just a great way to have substantially more control. And due to all the great open source models that are out there, it's just giving a lot more power to the person and customizability with an excellent foundation that's out there, OpenClaw or any of the other services. Hannah and Patrick.
All right, round us out, Patrick.
Who here's technical? Okay, who here's not technical? Okay, if you're not technical, use Manus, do risk assessments on what you're connecting it to, and if you are, Manus agents, and then if you're technical, use OpenClaw. The reality of the situation is, like, us as technical, we tend to forget sometimes that developing these tools and understanding the structure and architecture of how we design these tools is kind of like out of scope, and because we understand basic architecture, so we can't expect somebody that's not technical to suddenly be like, oh, I want it to have connection to Figma, and I know how to do that, and I want it to have connection to Airtable, and I know exactly how to do that. That's unrealistic. Best way to do this is use something that is closed source so that they can at least get to the point of what they're trying to execute on, is develop something that is similar to OpenClaw, that is a consistent agent that they can communicate with, and that thing executes tasks on their behalf. So if you're not technical, feel free to jump into Perplexity. Feel free to use Manus. I personally use Manus as well. I love Manus Agent. It's one best deep research tool, bar none, out of any option out there. So if you want to have something that does great deep research and also like execute tasks for whatever connector you want to put it to, great, use that. But I want to make sure it's super realistic for you to kind of build on, and it doesn't take months for you to figure out how to use a freaking OpenClaw. So use the tool that is realistic for your capabilities, but make sure you do risk assessments as to what data you're making available to it.
This new questions is so good that we're going to round with this one, actually. Let's talk about trust. Let's talk about like who to actually trust when it comes to advice on software engineering, tools to use. Obviously, you have, I'll have you round out again. I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm probably not the best guy. I don't have a running index of all the YouTubers. I watch videos here and there, but I couldn't give you like, this guy's good, this guy's bad. I don't know. I run most of my research or kind of exploration through LLMs at this point. So like, I don't necessarily just say like, oh, I'm going to go to this guy and have them be my source of truth. I definitely did that like 5 years ago when I was first getting into coding. There are a couple channels that I watched a ton of videos on. But now it's much more like, okay, I have this problem. I need to try and figure out a way to do it. Deep research task, go out, give me the overview, drill into different areas that seem interesting or that I want to learn more about. And so I would say, I don't know, without giving obviously any specific individuals, like use the tools that you have there. It's so easy to find new information that you might not just know of, or know their channel or know their social media page off the top of your head, and just use Claude or GPT or Gemini and kind of do research that way. You'll probably be taken to some cool videos that you like, and maybe you can watch some other stuff. But I'd say, I don't know. Maybe I don't know how well that answers the question, but
It's good. That's true.
Matthew Berman's had the best content I've seen in totality. He does a good job. He's had a good amount of videos for. He's an AI YouTuber, podcast guy in general, and his last 4 on OpenClaw have been pretty solid, and I would say good foundation work for anyone. Then there are people who are on the OpenClaw team that are being interviewed on podcasts. Jason Calacanis just had one of them on. I don't love Jason Calacanis necessarily, but he was really interesting to see on the podcast and talk about where things came from, security. So listening, just YouTube rat holing of looking for OpenClaw's employees talk, and obviously including Peter, whatever his last name is, and so the founder. So those are just YouTube rat holes, but Matthew Berman's had the last 3 have been bangers in the OpenClaw world.
Big Matthew Berman endorsement.
OpenClaw Expert is like the Herbalife hustle today. Like, I'm so tired of like people putting freaking OpenClaw Expert. If you go back and they were like NAN experts like 6 months ago, then you probably shouldn't listen to them. Because they were NAN experts, and then at some point they're probably like a life coach and all this other stuff. And so, like, in my opinion, you got to avoid those people as much as possible. But like, who do you listen to? To be perfectly honest, it's kind of hard. But I would say this is the day and age where you don't need so much experts, that you yourself can become an expert if you're constantly communicating and learning how to properly communicate and learn from the LLMs themselves. Allow them to do their research and allow them to, differentiate information from one YouTube video to the next. You don't even have to watch the video anymore. You can give it to the, Manus or whatever AI you want and allow it to do its differential diagnosis on which video is best. And so I'm really against, I really against the term even expert in a sense, because to me, it's just the expert is the hidden word for hustle. And so that's kind of how I like to close out that thought. But don't be afraid to like look at their content. Just don't go down the rabbit hole of whatever freaking sales pipeline they designed behind the scenes. Anybody that's like super vague and is like, oh, I did this amazing thing. You should click on this link to do this. Don't do that. To buy the course. Yeah, to buy the course or whatever. Yeah.
Well said. And this is why I opened this all up with no one knows what they're doing. Yeah. And both things are true. We are blessed in this emerging community to have people that, even if they don't want to call themselves experts, they have been putting in the reps. They now have thousands of hours under their belt. That if we want to call anyone an expert, it's the people actually putting in the work and actually delivering shareholder value. Yes. Okay. Okay. All right. So I think we're good. I just want to thank the sponsors of the foundational sponsors of Applied AI Society. Travis is Oliphant, a pioneer of the AI space, open source AI space. Couldn't be here, but he is so excited about what's emerging in the open source AI community. And he also co-founded OT Incubator, which invests in early stage companies. They have a couple unicorns. It's pretty cool. AITX Community, they are also hosting an event in Houston, which is awesome. I cannot wait to be doing events in other cities with them. And I want to thank all of you because, well, first, sorry for the initial technical difficulties. Now I know that you have to be within a 30-degree angle range for there to be any sound. But I also want to thank Ron and Russ, who went to Best Buy or something and picked up a speaker system so that that was the worst it's ever going to be. So I'm really excited about this community, as you can imagine. People have been asking for Discord. Now we have a Discord. I'm going to send this out in a recap as well, so don't worry about it. But also join, say hi. Russ is going to be moderating. And the point here is, well, it's not actually just for the multi-city point, because we're not always going to be here in person to talk about questions. And whenever you have a question, whenever you have an insight, whenever you have something you want to share, drop it in the Discord. But it's going to be really fun when people in, I'm getting hit up by people in all over the world, New Zealand, France, Australia, etc. Like, there's going to be pockets of hackers around the world that come up with something awesome. And that's exactly what happened with things like ZeroClaw, right? Like, and just all these open source projects that are just so amazing. And they just ripple across these like tight-knit communities in different localities, and it's amazing. What else? All right, well, some of you already started to meet someone new during the break, which makes me so happy. This particular place closes at 8:30. A little early, okay. So I encourage y'all to go to Better Half or Holdout Brewing, which is right next door. Holdout Brewing, I haven't been to Better Half, but Holdout Brewing is a cool outdoor, it's a beautiful weather right now. Grab a beer, or not, and go meet someone. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming out, and we're going to do a lot more fun stuff in March.